How's it going, people? My name's Pedro, and today we're going to be looking at a tiny sub 7 litre case from AliExpress. So now AliExpress is a pretty interesting place. You can get everything from clothing through to mobile phones and pretty much everything in between. So now today we're going to be looking at something probably a little closer to home. Pretty much going to be looking at a small ITX case from a brand called SGPC. SGPC is a manufacturer that sells on AliExpress under a couple of other sellers, but basically SGPC is the brand that is on AliExpress. SGPC pretty much stocks a wide range of computer cases, all in the budget ITX range, and their cases range from a sub 4 litre ITX case that can house a pretty short graphics card, all the way up to a larger ITX case that can fit a 240mm radiator and a full-length graphics card. Now, the case we're looking at today sort of falls in the middle there, where it can still take a full-length graphics card, but has a CPU cooler height restriction down to 55mm. So now a little about the pricing about SGPC cases. Their prices range anywhere from as low as $50 all the way up to about $85, which is what the K55 here costs. And with that there, it definitely puts it more on the budget side of the spectrum, as opposed to some of the competitors for the SGPC, such as the Dan Case A4 and the Loki Ghost S1, both of which cost over $200. And with this lower price here, I guess we're going to try and find out if it is a comparable experience to building in a case that is double the price. Now, having a look at the unit itself, the K55 has a very minimal layout, with only having a single power button and a white LED on top. Now, this means that there are no other sort of USB ports on the case. All USB interface would need to be done from the back of the PC itself, which isn't really that bad considering how small the K55 is, and reaching to the back of the actual case itself isn't really an issue at all. Now, looking at the inside of the K55, it has support for two 2.5-inch hard drives, so that's basically your SSDs and smaller laptop style hard drives. Along with that as well, you can also fit full-length graphics cards in this case, so that's any graphics cards that are 2 slots and less than 300mm. So effectively any sort of modern graphics card should be able to fit comfortably, but it'd be important to note that you should at least check the width of the graphics card due to the K55 not being able to support cards that are 2.5 or even 3 slots. That's definitely something to check before trying to slot a graphics card into this case. And lastly, the K55 supports air coolers that are under 55mm in height. So this means that anything like these low profile Noctua coolers will be fine, along with your stock coolers that generally come in the box with Intel or AMD CPUs. Building in the K55 is definitely an interesting experience, mostly because of its small form factor, with it being under 7 litres, and at the same time being able to house a full-length graphics card and a high-end desktop CPU. Now with this here, there is definitely some compromises you make on a case like this. A, you're not allowed to have a graphics card that's more than 2 slots wide, and B, you have that CPU cooler height restriction, along with how many hard drives you can mount down the bottom of the case. Now online, the K55 is advertised to hold 2 distinct hard drives, so that would be either 1 SSD, 1 hard drive, or two laptop 2.5-inch hard drives. Now when building in this case here, I could only really manage to fit 1 hard drive in there. The second hard drive I managed to get in the case technically, but it's just sort of sitting and being compressed by all of the cables coming out of the power supply. Speaking of the power supply and other components in the K55, to build in this case, you need to basically prepare your motherboard, CPU, cooler, and RAM outside of the case, and then from that mount it on basically this half of the chamber. And then once that's mounted there, you can then go ahead and mount your power supply and then take care of some of the cable management. And then from that there, mount your hard drives and SSDs underneath the PC. There are basically 2 screws to mount the first hard drive. Unfortunately, like I said, I couldn't really find the second hard drive mounting spot, so I sort of just let it sit in there underneath the slew of cables. Lastly, you can pretty much get your graphics card into the case on the other half of the chamber. The K55 supports 2-slot graphics cards. Now, technically you can mount graphics cards that are 2.5 or under 3 slots, but one thing to be warned is that it will stick out of the case. And with that there, I don't necessarily think it looks bad. I just think it's something to keep in mind and note that having 2.5 to 2.8 slot graphics cards will definitely stick out and be noticeable to other people looking at the case. But I guess that's up to personal preference. So now talking about the pros and cons of the K55, the biggest advantage that it has going for it is that it is a very affordable case. At coming in at under $100, you basically get a comparable experience to the Dan Case A4 and the Loki Ghost S1 at half the price, while still maintaining a lot of the high-end features such as the clean minimalistic design, the high-end GPU support, along with the wide range of CPU and CPU cooler support. You might not have the modularity of the Ghost S1, but I feel like a lot of the downfalls of the K55 can still be made up for by the fact that it's still $85 to get this case. Now, while the K55 is still a good and usable case, there are still some cons that are associated with this. Firstly, the K55 does not have proper support for 2 drives. I did manage to fit a second drive in the case, but that definitely wasn't secured, and I wouldn't feel comfortable traveling with that hard drive plugged in and just left dangling in the case. Now, along with that as well, getting the GPU in place was a bit of a nightmare. You definitely did have to maneuver and squeeze and compress all of the hardware for it to fit inside the case itself. But with that being said, it is under $100 for effectively a Ghost S1 / Dan Case A4. Yes, it's not the most highest quality products, but at the same time, you are still getting a lot of compatibility inside a package this small. Now, who would I recommend this to? Basically anyone who's a small form factor PC enthusiast who doesn't want to basically cop the price of a $200 to $250 case with the Dan Case and the Ghost S1. You are giving up on a few of the premium features that come with the Dan Case and the Ghost S1, but you still make up for that by saving more than half on the price that they cost. All of that while still getting something that still looks very clean, very minimal, and honestly, if I was to see in someone's home media console, or if I was to see this sitting on someone's desk, I'd still turn my head and be like, that's a nice case you got there. Thank you, it's the K55. So that'll pretty much wrap up the case review of the K55. Honestly, I took a bit of a gamble picking this up with the whole pandemic that's been going on. I didn't even know if this would show up in the mail or not, but it did, and honestly, I'm really glad I picked it up just because it ended up being a really interesting buy, and this was something I didn't really see on YouTube or really anywhere else online. People doing a review to let anyone know just how it felt to build or even just use this case in general. So if you enjoyed the video, be the cool guy or girl to give this video a like, get subscribed down below, and then drop a comment to let me know any other sort of tech you'd want me to have a look at. That's been it from me, guys. Have a good one.